All right, I'll try to make this quick. I just wanted to put something out there and hopefully it helps people out. So, M plus the season, it's it hits different, right? Than most of the other seasons. So, I just wanted to come up with some tricks that I've used in the past and that I plan on using this season that I've already started using this season. So, once again, I'll try to go through it pretty quick instead of making it a long video. So, first tip: look at season's already started. You can go to Raider.io, look at the top rated tank that's on there, and see what they're doing. Okay, so pretty simple. You just go on there, scroll down. You want to find the top tanks. Okay, this is obvious. So you can just basically go through, find one of your class. So when I do it, what I do is I grab multiples of them. So I open them up in other windows. Okay, I just open up a new tab. You can see their gear, what they're using, what trinkets they're using. You can copy their specs. I recommend, and then you can kind of see where you want to go, what items you might want to craft. This season is very diverse. Everybody has different crafted gear. Specs are pretty much the same, so that means that that's a good solid thing. So if like you're gonna want to pretty much take that spec, you can play with it a little bit if you want to. It's your call, what you're comfortable with, right? But what I advise, especially if you're starting off, take this, build on it. You can always do more research, but this is once again just recommendations. So you can go through here and kind of see what gems they're using and all that kind of stuff. Okay, you can open up multiples of them, as I said, and look through them all. I usually open about three of them, see what they're using for trinkets. That if they all have the same trinket, I'm like, okay, that's a money trinket. That's probably like one of my bis. Obviously, you can go on to Icy Veins and other stuff and look up that, but I'm telling you, they don't always update. It's sometimes from pre-release, and usually you kind of want to go with the people who are actually doing the content and can feel what it feels like to have certain gear, right? Okay, so the next thing I do after kind of checking in here, just kind of seeing where my spec's at, where this spec's at. The other thing that I usually do is I go through and I watch videos. Okay, I do them one at a time. I don't go through and watch all the videos because as a tank you have to study these routes, right? So you're gonna go through and like have to watch. You can look them up on YouTube. Use whoever you'd prefer to whoever you'd prefer to watch. Like if you find somebody engaging, I thought about making videos, but there's a lot of people out there right now for it, and they're great. I should tag a couple of people. Not today. We're just going to continue going on. So watch some videos. There's some that are just bosses, which is a big thing, and some of the other dungeons. I mean, they're really not that long. They're probably most of them are like 8 minutes. Go through, watch a video, and then what I do is then you also want to make sure you have the right add-ons, right? So you want to make sure that you have DBM or bigwigs. You want method dungeon tools are great for routes. Having for tanking threat plates or a version of them. I'm using threat plates, and that's what you see. So basically, if they're green, it's good. If they're red, they're on another person, and then you can adjust them however you want. Okay, there's lots of routes available that are pug friendly or just routes with lots of notes on them. You can go online and find out. They're on Icy Veins and multiple other sites, and you could just go through, copy them off of there, import them in game, and then you'll have them, and then you could just basically see your route. Okay, you want to study your route, so you watch a video, study your route, open it up in game, look at it, say, okay, here's my pulls as I need to grab, and then you go into a zero. If you guys can do what you want to do, but this is what I recommend because you got to get your reps in. If you don't know your pulls, because later on, if you're pulling wrong packs, you're gonna wipe or you're gonna over percentage, and then you're gonna miss your time on your key, right? Because timing really matters, especially on the last boss. Okay, so what you want to do is study your route, go into a zero, no problem. Go into your zero. It's easy peasy, lemon squeezy, super easy, right? So you just go in there, you kill stuff, you kind of see the boss. You're like, okay, this is the way I've got to tank it. I got to pull it this way. I got to do this, right? Great. Okay. Then do a low key. Do like a 1 or a 2. This is to get your route down. Now you just saw it. So what I do is, once again, I pulled my route, I look at it, and I'm like, all right. And then I go in and I do my 1 or 2 key. Okay. Percentage is off at the end. It's fine. If, because you just pull a couple of ads, you're going to have plenty of time because people, it's not that bad. So, and it's only like a 1 or a 2, right? You can do a 3 if you want, if you've got the gear for it. I would recommend, if you don't feel comfortable, doing a lower 1 or a 2, or even a 3 should be okay. So you go after you're done, you review your route again. You open it back up and see, like, okay, where did I miss my percentage? Did I get all those groups? Hey, this thing sucked. I want to pull this instead, and then you can kind of work with your route a little bit in percentages. Okay. If you're and then if you're having issues on specific bosses and you're like, man, that boss, everybody died, I felt like I tanked it right, but I'm not sure, go back and review it. Just go back to one of your videos and just watch that boss section and be like, how can I tank that better so that we're more successful? What can I do better with this? Because a good difference between a tank that just goes through, like, there's a difference between a good tank versus just somebody who you're like, healers is feeling they have to carry, right? Or your DPS have to carry, and it's just a rough key, and you don't want that for your healer. Another thing is you want to work on bigger pulls as you get comfortable, as you build knowledge. So later on, there's some guys out there that do like triple pulls, which is great if you've got the gear for it and you know the place. And the problem is if you're pug lifing, they're probably not going to know the big pulls until we get later in the season when there's more gear out there. Because right now, trying to do a triple pull, you're going to wipe your group and they're going to be like, you're an idiot, and they're going to drop or they're going to leave. So you got to play a little bit different right now. Obviously, if you have a guild group or a community group or a group that you know, it may be a little bit different, and also depends on the level of key, right? If you're feeling squishy and you're like, I feel like I'm taking spike damage, I don't like the way this feels. If you tank long enough, you kind of get a feel for, because you want to time your cooldowns so that you're taking steady damage and healing and having some of your own survival, right? Depending on what tank class you choose. And the problem is you want to give the healer as much freedom as possible. So if you're taking crazy damage and then there's AoE damage going out, then the whole group's going to wipe. So you need to be able to time your cooldowns, right? So if you're feeling squishy, make sure you got gems, enchants, like check your trinkets. If you're feeling squishy, get more verse or get a damage reduction trinket instead of a damage trinket. A lot of people say damage is king. You gotta survive, like if you're dead, then your key's wiped. Like, it doesn't matter. So if you need to rely on your DPS to get bosses down, that's completely fine. Like don't get me wrong, it's good to have the damage, especially for the bigger pools if you're timing your cooldowns. But I lost myself. Look at that. It's all right. So, you want to make sure that all your stuff's in line. I tend to go more, if I'm feeling super squishy, I get a little more verse. That's what I do. I also work on my cooldown rotation. I tighten it up a little bit, especially for different pulls. If you don't have cooldowns up, don't do a big pull, do small pulls. Like, that's the way it goes. Then when you get that's what I always do. I always time it big pulls with some big cooldowns, right? I mean, you can't do much if they pull all of it, but it is what it is. You can, once again, Raider IO, what trinkets are they using? Oh, I should probably go for that one. Oh, what staff are they using? Because because right now I have a crit haste staff that is terrible for tanking because I want verse. Yes, it has damage on it and it's heroic, so I'm using it right now because eye level is usually king. But I eventually want to get a verse staff in haste if I can, whether it's crafted or I find it somewhere else, depending on what class you're in, because I'm talking about my druid right now. All right, so usually if you go through it and you look at the Raider IO, you can have an idea on, usually they have pretty good specs, like damage reduction in there. You could always adjust them if you had to, right? When pushing high keys later, what I usually do is once I'm like, hey, I know these places, I've grinded out some keys, I've leveled up each dungeon, I'm doing 8s, 9s, 10s, and they're okay. Like, I don't feel like they're, I'm not triple chesting them, I'm, getting 1 or 2 depending on my group, then I'm like, all right, so what can I do to be better and not, cut that timer so close? So what I do is I watch higher keys videos, like 10s, 12s, 15s, of streamers, you know what I mean, that are doing the high end content. You can look up, if you go to the IO or Raider IO, you can find people with links to their stuff, and usually they have videos online. There's a lot of videos. You can just look up plus 15 or plus 10, or anything like that, and it pulls up all these videos. And so what you want to do with these videos is look at your triple pulls, right? That's what you want to do. So you want to look at, okay, where's this double pull? Where's this triple? Okay, all right. Okay, so I got to save cooldowns on that. And a lot of people do it like in the beginning, like depending on the key. Like they're doing a big pull in the beginning. Sometimes a hero, depending on the affixes for the week. It just depends. So you just go through and do another wave of research later on. I mean, that if you were going to push that higher stuff. I'm not going to go too much into that right now. Because that's not really the purpose of this. I'd rather get some base information for people starting back into the season or just starting taking overall. Because it can be really frustrating when you get into these. Like, I'm frustrated this season. Like, I've started in a little bit late because I was just like, rating just feels so good right now. And M plus is, I have to play at a higher caliber. I really do. Which is fine. I mean, I do every M plus season and I'm always successful. You know, one season I had, 2,900. And I just stopped pushing because I was bored. And then I usually get 25, 26, and then I stop because there's really no point. This season I might go higher. We'll see how things go. But last point that I want to bring up is that there's a big difference between pug tanking and friend, guild, family groups, people that you know, okay? You have to be more self-reliant, okay? So you really have to learn your cooldowns to make sure that you can support the team. It seems kind of, what are you talking about? What I'm talking about is when you get a pug, you could have a terrible healer. You could have terrible DPS. And what does that mean? That means no one's interrupting, because you should be interrupting on CD. If you have 3 interrupts, you should be using them all the time, depending on the affixes that you need to support. But you should be using those on rotation. Just to interrupt, like, you should be on CD. There are mods to help out with that assign, but it's usually easier, once again, I mean, you can get the mod and then set it up, and then it'll get shapes and everything, and you start off and say, I've got this shape. That's an option. That's fine. But when you're pugging, it's kind of hard to get people to do what you want. Half the time they don't interrupt. When you get into higher IO and higher keys, people know what they're doing, especially this season. Last season was very unforgiving because we just outgeared it. And like it just wasn't even a season because all people got paid carries. There was just all kinds of mess, and people with like super low DPS were just getting carried through high level keys. So you can't even count that. Like season 3, yeah, sure, a little bit, but like everybody's carrying over gear from the previous season, and so like it just felt different, right? So if I'm going in with a pug group, I know that I have. Either I'm going to have great DPS or I'm going to have okay DPS. And if it's okay DPS, I know that these pulls are going to be up longer. So the first pull, you usually kind of have an idea. If ads are up for a long time, you know you don't have a high DPS group. In that case, if I do triple big pulls, I'm going to run out of CDs and it's going to get a little rough. The healer's going to run out of mana. It's going to get a little rough. So you have to pace it accordingly, okay? The other thing is if you see them not interrupting at all, you might have to say something. I mean, that just is what it is, depending on the high level of the key. But the fact, like, please help me with interrupts, right? Like, but sometimes it's fine. Like, sometimes you'll have a couple people to interrupt, and it'll be fine. So, like, but you can still have the lack of DPS. So these are the two main things with DPS that are an issue. You can't do much about them standing in places they shouldn't be, or, like, it's going to happen. They're going to die. You can do the best you can do to position things the best you can. As far as a healer goes, so this is the big thing that I found in pugs. So depending on the affixes, specific healers shine. So if you go into a key as in a pug group, like I've done pre-mates, and I had this, I friended this shaman, dude. Like we knocked keys out. Like it was great. I was like, hell yeah, let's do this. And so we took him and we ran a bunch of keys. It was great. Next week, different affixes. He couldn't get through anything. Like we failed like so many keys, and I was just like, oh, that's too bad. And we ended up not running with him again, which is just too bad. But it's just like specific weeks kind of hit different, right? I mean, obviously as a healer, you're going to have to adjust. I've done healing too, but we're not on that right now. But my point is if you have a healer, like you can even change your spec to help with group healing depending on the affixes. These are all kinds of different things you can do, but if you're in a pug, you're probably going to have to heal yourself more and have really good cooldown, avoiding stuff, with what you're doing. Like, I can feel it immediately when I have a strong healer versus an okay healer. Not only, like, I've pulled multiple bosses and, like, they aren't, like, the people in the group aren't even healed up before it because the healer's not healing them. I mean, you obviously have to watch their mana, help where you can, but, like, if there's a healer that's either under geared or is just not comfortable in M+, because some people rating in M+ are a different life completely, you're going to have to be a little more self-reliant. So, big thing to know for pugs. So, if you go into a key and it's rough, it might not be you. It really might. You got to kind of look at it. So, what I do is sometimes I look at my healing, done. I look at my damage, done. If I'm going through and normally in groups, like, we're mowing stuff down and I'm, like, I'm a chunk below the DPS, but now I'm almost even with them, you got a little bit lower DPS, which is fine. You can still get keys done with lower DPS. But as a good tank, you have to adjust your pulls. It's a steady dungeon. That's it. That's fine. If your healer's weak, it's the same thing. You can't do big pulls. Like, you're going to have to do steady pulls and play it smart. And you can still get your key, but you just got to be kind of adjusting to it. That's a big difference. I mean, the goal is to complete the key, right? And to time it. It'd be great to triple chest every key. Yeah. But what I do is when I have my gear, so like right now I think I'm at 608, 609. Like, I'm feeling comfortable. Like, 5s feel fine. I could probably do 7s with a good cooldown, like good rotation. But I probably feel like I should probably, wait to get to 10s until I get to more like 615 or better itemized gear. You've got to go in and see what you feel like. If you're not that great at rotating your cooldowns, then you're probably going to want to stay a little bit lower. But do realize that if you there's a spreadsheet that kind of tells you what and where, which is pretty great. Let me share that screen real quick. So if we're looking at all right. Oh, what's that? Oh, that's great. So, all right. Well, it is what it is. It's not going to let me show it. Oh, there we go. Okay, so if you're looking at this chart right here, okay, I know it's not focused purely on the dungeon part, but that's in the middle, okay? This is, you can find this online also. I could always use the link if people really want it. So, I didn't make this. So you can see the guy in the bottom corner. This was by Gendlin. Anyway, so if you go through and you look at dungeons, right? So you can get heroic gear in your vault for doing a 3, right? Or you could just do a 7 or 8 delve and get that. Just to get heroic gear in your thing. Completely fine, right? So, but you also get Ruin Crest at 4. And that's the stuff to upgrade your heroic gear. So that's to a certain point, right? So that anything in that zone is really good right now. And then obviously later on, if you want to get heroic gear drops, you're going to want to do 7+ to get heroic drops, which is where the goal should be, to get to 7s and then get geared. And once you're geared, your goal should be 10s. Like, yes, if you have a guild group that's willing to slosh it out and you can get somebody with a 10, great. Can't always get that. So, but once again on here, so like 10 is what you can get the mythic ball, and that's the goal. Everybody should want to get their 10s in every week. Not everybody's getting 10s in right now. If you look at Raider.io and look at their keys, like late into like Saturday, they'd only gotten 9s and 10s done. And these are the top tanks right now, are only doing 10s. Right now, I think we looked at it earlier, I think they've only got 11s in, maybe some 12s. I mean, that's it. Like, so for you to think that you're going to go in and do 10s when the top tanks are only barely getting into 10s this week, don't be hard on yourself. Come on now. Like, no, it's not like previous seasons. The previous seasons in the first week, yeah, I was like slam dunk and stuff. Like, I'm like, this is fine. I mean, I know this place or this and that. I can just go through. It's not feeling that way this season because it is different. It is different. Not bad, just different. So I would recommend, which I've done, is do your delves. Get your reps in on 8 delves every week, so you have 3 options there. Go through and do your raids because they're pretty easy right now. You can pug life raids so easy. Heroic is not bad. You have to obviously learn things, to learn strats and stuff like that. But it's like, you look at raid, it's 7 bosses versus, if you're doing mythic keys, you're doing 3 to 4 bosses per dungeon times like 5. So it's so much harder to get, and you have to learn the routes. It's a tough life for tanks. Once you get it down, it's fine, but you got to do your reps and memorize it, and then you're all set, right? So you can see on here once again, like there's the vault versus the loot. So it depends on what you want to do. So yeah. I guess that's pretty much all I got for tidbits. I think I covered everything. These are just things that I do. You can skip some of this stuff. It's just what I've done over time. You can also, like Dream Grove for Druids, there's a bunch of stuff in there where you can record your thing and then videos and submit it, and they'll go through and give you feedback. They'll say, hey, you got to work on this cooldown. If you rotate this better, you'll do better on damage. You'll do better on this. You should tank this way, and they'll kind of help you out. There's a team in there that's pretty great. And there's a lot of different stuff like that, depending if you want people to kind of go through and critique and help you out. There's a lot of stuff like that. Yeah, I feel like I'm rambling long enough. I think that's all I got for goods for right now. Feel free to leave a comment if you guys have any questions or would like to see some more information on any stuff I've covered. Hopefully it's helpful. It doesn't really matter if you're in the beginning, the first week of M+ season, second week of M+ season, all of this stuff. If you're just like, hey, I'm on an alt, I want to try tanking, all of this stuff applies. So, I mean, honestly, if you're shifting and you've already done the dungeons as a DPS or a healer, you're going to kind of already be familiar with it a little bit. So it actually be a little bit easier. All right, cool. Okay, thanks for joining me. Feel free to leave a like or a follow. All right, take care.